Hello, I'm Tim Shoebridge. Welcome to this video. This is going to be a very simple and short video to talk about using the Expressive-E Osmose as a controller keyboard. Now the reason why it's going to be so simple and short is because it's so easy to use the Osmose as a controller keyboard. It's very straightforward. The menu system is very straightforward, and there's a ton of useful information on Expressive-E's website. There's an online user guide there for the Osmose. It walks you through all the settings that you need to make to get your Osmose to talk to your synthesizer. So I'm not going to go into all the nitty-gritty and the detail about how to do it, because all the information is available on the internet, and it is, trust me, very straightforward to do. So what I thought I'd do in this video is really just kind of demonstrate it working and talk you through a few sort of things you might want to think about when you're doing it. But that's about it really as far as this video is concerned. Now just a couple of things I want to mention. First of all, terminology. Now I'm going to be talking about pressure and polyphonic aftertouch in this video. I just want to make sure that you know what I mean by those terms when I say them. Now the Osmose keyboard has got 3 dimensions of polyphonic expression. It's got the side-to-side wiggle, the pitch bend, the vibrato, whatever you want to call it. That's one of the dimensions. The second dimension is initial pushing down on the key or releasing the key, and that is what is called pressure. Initial pressure, it's the sort of like the note on and note off pressure. That is the second dimension of polyphonic expression. The third dimension is polyphonic aftertouch. That is, once you've got the note held down, it's the further pressure that you might want to give on the note, which is what polyphonic aftertouch traditionally is, right? It's from note on downwards. So that's pressure, the initial expression, and polyphonic aftertouch is once the note is on, that further expression. I'm going to use those terms a couple of times, or quite a few times actually in this video, so I just want to make sure you're aware of what I'm talking about. They are the exact same terms that are used inside the Osmose, inside its menu system, etc. So we are hopefully all on the same page as far as those terms are concerned. The last thing I want to mention is, okay, well, in terms of demonstrating using the Osmose as a controller keyboard, I thought, well, what synthesizer or other keyboard could I use to control it as a demonstration? I could use a software synth, for example, a VST plugin, but for me, very personally, there is a very logical choice of what synthesizer to use, and it is this one here behind me. I'm sorry it's out of focus, but that's just the way I like to have things. This is the Deckard's Dream Mark II. I really do need to do a video about this synthesizer. I really do, because I am absolutely enamored by it. Words just cannot express how much I am enamored by it. It's just a thing of beauty, and for me it's just the most incredible sound as well. I know it's a premium synth, I know it's very expensive, and I know they're difficult to come by at the moment, but it really is. It's just, for me, in a class of its own. It really is. But anyway, this video is not about the Deckard's Dream. It's about the Osmose. It's about using it as a controller keyboard. I'm going to use as a demonstration how to hook it up to the Deckard's Dream and the different options that are available, but you can then sort of like take that information and use it to whatever synthesizer you want to control with your Osmose. The Osmose can control MkII synthesizers. It can control sort of non-standard, not MkII, but still multi-channel synthesizers. It can control just polyphonic aftertouch enabled synthesizers. So the Deckard's Dream is one, the Prophet 6, quite a few of the sequential Prophet synthesizers can support polyphonic aftertouch. In fact, quite a lot of synthesizers can support polyphonic aftertouch, even though they don't actually have polyphonic aftertouch keyboards. And you can use the Osmose to control basically any old synthesizer you want to, and there are some interesting options available for how to do that go sort of like above and beyond a normal regular controller keyboard. So anyway, that's what's coming up. Osmose as a controller. I really do hope you like it. As always, thank you very much for watching. Right, so let's have a look at the options available on the Deckard Stream for controlling it via MIDI. And we have this tiny little menu system here. So let's zoom in and have a look. We've got a mode option in the MIDI menu. And there you can see we've got 3 options available. We've got channel pressure, poly aftertouch, and MkII. So channel pressure is monophonic aftertouch. So if you've got a monophonic aftertouch enabled keyboard, then choose that first option. If you are lucky enough to have a polyphonic aftertouch enabled keyboard like a Hydra synth or an Iridium keyboard or some of the other keyboards that are now available out there that support poly aftertouch, then fantastic, choose that second option. And let's face it, that's what the Deckard Stream is really all about. It's about polyphonic aftertouch. And then we have a third option, MkII, and this adds 2 extra layers of, or dimensions rather, of polyphonic expression, including polyphonic pitch bend. We'll get onto that in a little while. Right, and here are the options on the Osmos for controlling an external synthesizer. This is the main menu where you choose between looking at the sound engine parameters on the screen or the external MIDI parameters on the screen. So I'm choosing external MIDI, and we're taken straight away to the different modes we have. We've got MkII, we've got classic keyboard, we've got polyphonic aftertouch, poly aftertouch, sorry, and we've got something called multi-channel. Now, what do those modes actually mean? They're all described very, very nicely on Expressive-E's website, so please check that out. But basically, MkII is for controlling an MkII enabled synthesizer with the 3 dimensions of polyphonic expression. Classic keyboard means you've got a synthesizer that doesn't have any kind of polyphonic expression at all. Maybe it responds, hopefully it responds to monophonic aftertouch, but that's about it. So that's your classic keyboard. Poly aftertouch, well, that's obvious. That's for controlling a synthesizer that supports poly aftertouch. And then finally we have something called multi-channel, and this is where you might want to control a synthesizer that's not subscribing to the MkII standard. Maybe it was sort of like doing polyphonic expression but before MkII was defined. And there are a few synthesizers out there that kind of fall into that category. So this is one where you are basically sending notes, 1 note per channel, polyphonically, and that's the option to choose. It's all described and explained very, very nicely on Expressive-E's website in their online user guide for the Osmos. Right, so let's get stuck in. Let's hook up the Osmos to the Deckard Stream. So first of all, here I am choosing Poly Aftertouch mode. Poly Aftertouch mode on the Deckard Stream, Poly Aftertouch mode on the Osmos, and they play beautifully together. Those controls on the Deckard Stream for adding polyphonic expression with the Poly Aftertouch, they all just work perfectly. It is really just a gorgeous way to use the Deckard Stream. It really, really is. However, there's one thing that I kind of miss when I'm playing the Osmos. I have that wonderful key wobble and get some wonderful vibrato and pitch bend. and I don't have that here in Polyphonic Aftertouch mode. I do have it, it's not enabled by default. You can go into the Osmose and turn on pitch bend sensitivity. I'm going to whack it up really quite high, exaggerate it so we can hear what's going on. But what you'll notice here is that the pitch bend that you can apply by bending a key is not polyphonic. It doesn't just affect that one key you're bending, it affects all the notes that you might be holding down at that time. So that's not really very good. So let's switch to MkII mode, because it's in MkII mode that we get polyphonic pitch bend, as well as the ability to have our aftertouch, polyphonic aftertouch, which is just so wonderful on the Deckard Stream. Now, something weird happens when you choose MkII mode with the Deckard Stream, and that is that all of that wonderful polyphonic expression that you can control on the front panel, suddenly that doesn't become polyphonic expression anymore. It becomes pressure expression. So go back to the beginning of the video and check out my terminology here. So all of those controls on the front panel for applying polyphonic aftertouch, they are now pressure expression, which for me is not really very useful at all. I want it to still be polyphonic aftertouch. Now, thankfully, the Osmose is incredibly configurable. You can decide exactly what MIDI CC or what MIDI messages are sent for both pressure and for polyphonic aftertouch dimensions of expressions. So basically, you just go into that menu system and you choose what you want. So I'm going to choose sort of like the opposite way round than MkII provides me, so that I can get my Deckard Stream to respond the way I want to, which is that polyphonic aftertouch gives me control over polyphonic aftertouch in terms of those front panel controls on the Deckard Stream. But that means now that we have two more dimensions of polyphonic expression to play with on the Deckard Stream. Now, I have to say that in terms of that initial pressure of pushing down on the notes, the choices available on the Deckard Stream don't really kind of inspire me, to be honest with you. You know, you're kind of like speeding up the LFO or applying the LFO to one of the modulations, the filter cutoff or the oscillator pitch or whatever. The thing about it is that it's only sort of like being applied as you start to press down on the notes with the Osmose. So by the time you've actually pressed down on the notes, you've got maximum of whatever modulation you've chosen. And just to me, that just doesn't make sense. I don't know if I'm describing it very well. At the end of the day, you probably have to have an Osmose and a Deckard Stream and play them together to sort of like maybe understand what I'm talking about. But at the end of the day, that sort of third dimension of polyphonic expression, the MIDI CC 74 as it is on the Deckard Stream, I just don't really see myself using it, I'm afraid. But the reason for using MkII mode on the Deckard Stream is that I've got now polyphonic pitch bend. So I've got my aftertouch that I love, my polyphonic aftertouch, and now I've also got polyphonic pitch bend. I can wiggle those keys on a per note basis and get vibrato, which is what you could do on the wonderful, rare Yamaha GX1. I think the top two keyboards on the GX1 supported that pitch bend wiggle, and so that's what we have now, and it is absolutely